Well, good afternoon. Happy Friday, May 22nd. Mark Milam here. Let's get right to it. So, kind of a mixed bag this week, off to a little bit of a rocky start. We saw some bond resilience as we moved throughout the week, but really still kind of languishing in the midst of the conflict in Iran and its impact on the price of oil. And as inflation continues to put upward pressure on bonds, that's just going to drag mortgage rates right along with it. And we find ourselves in this period of time where we're really just sort of waiting for the next shoe to drop as it pertains to the military conflict because it's going to be tied to so many things geopolitically, not the least of which is the price of oil and its impact on overall on mortgage rates, which impacts home ownership affordability. Let me flip the screen around here. We're going to cover one other quick thing. Kevin Warsh was sworn in today as the new Fed chair, replacing Jerome Powell, and some surprising language from the President of the United States. I'll cover it for you right here. President stating, I want him to be independent and just do a great job. He said, don't look at me, don't look at anybody, just do your own thing and do a great job. The president went on to throw some shade at Warsh's predecessor, saying, in the eyes of many, the Fed had lost its way in recent years and became distracted by concerns far removed from its core mission and mandate, drifting into matters such as climate policy and DEI initiatives. Now, this is a little bit of surprising language coming from the president because it wasn't that long ago. We can go back to August of 2025 when we know that the president was publicly calling for the ouster of Jerome Powell for not cutting interest rates. In fact, he called on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors to take control from Powell since Powell was unwilling to lower the Fed funds rate. Of course, it is a vote. Powell can't just unilaterally lower interest rates. It's got a vote with the rest of the voting members of the board. So this is a big shift in tone that we're seeing from the administration towards the new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh. Will be interesting to see if it remains. I got one other piece of news today, and it's around a growing metric or a growing economic data set that we really should be paying more and more attention to, and that's the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. Now, this is one of the longest running macroeconomic data sets we have in the country, and it measures how consumers feel about their current prospects and about how their future prospects will be into the next 12 months. Everything from financial outlook to interest rates to home ownership affordability is included in the 50 question survey. It's sent out to 1,000 Americans every single month. And in April, we got the lowest reading ever in the history of the country. And on May 8th, we got the lowest reading beyond that. So in other words, May 8th was the absolute lowest. April was the second lowest. That was the preliminary number in May 8th. Let me show it to you. It's pretty fascinating, actually. So we came in at 48.2 on May 8th. But here's the interesting part. That's obviously a record low for the past 80 years from this index, but that's the preliminary number. And it has to go through a couple of weeks worth of revisions as we get more and more data in and we make sure that we're reporting the accurate figure. And the revised final consumer sentiment index came in today, and we thought it'd be pretty close to the same. Well, turns out it actually came in even lower. The index of consumer sentiment actually fell from 48.2, a record low in the history of the index, all the way down to 44.8. We have not seen a level that low ever in the history of the country. And it just goes to underscore the point that while the stock market might be setting new records the other direction, consumer sentiment is telling really the administration and Congress that there's a lot of pain to be felt amongst the citizens in terms of how unaffordable daily life has become in the United States and also the level of debt that the country carries. Obviously, the war has exacerbated this because it's caused inflation to spike, not only at the gas pump, but across a host of the basket of goods. So it's going to be really interesting to see the administration and Congress's response to this record low consumer sentiment level, if any. Obviously, we'll keep our eye on that as we do with interest rates and housing. If there's any service I can provide for you over the holiday weekend, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you to all of our veterans and obviously those who've gone before us and sacrificed for our country. Happy Memorial Day.